Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing another Get Better With Me makeup video. If you watched the previous one, you know what a Get Better With Me is. If you didn't, it's very self-explanatory. Basically where you follow me along as I progress on my makeup journey and on future clients that may come. So I'm just going to hop right in. I started with my micro brow pencil from NYX. This comes with a spoolie on one end as well as the pencil on the other end. I'm just going to use the spoolie to brush my brows up, and then I'm going to go in with the pencil to create hair-like strokes so that it can look more natural. I also like to brush up while I'm drawing on my brow, just so that I can know if there's any spaces that need to be filled in. And my brows never come out identical, but I'm never too worried about it because, like they say, brows are sisters, not twins. Now I'm just going in with my Blistex to prep my lips before I use my gloss. Next, I'm going in with my LA Girl Pro Concealer in the shade Fawn. I'm going to mix that with the ColourPop Concealer in the shade Deep Dark until I get the perfect shade. And I'm going to be using the Wet n Wild Skinny Flat Brush to apply that to my brows. I like to start at the end of my brow and work my way up. I feel like it just gives me more control over the shape, and it limits the amount that's at the front of the brow, which will give it a more natural look to it. When I conceal the top of my brow, I like to go in with just one big swipe just to give me a baseline of what I'm working with, and then I can go in and touch it up as needed, whether with concealer or with the eyebrow pencil. And to blend that all out, I'm using the Real Techniques 307 shading brush. For that, I like to go in with small, quick taps instead of rubbing because I just feel like it gives me better results that way. And I'm just using the concealer brush that I used previously for my brows, and I'm spreading that down to my eyelids just so I can get a good base for my eyeshadow. And don't mind me, y'all. I was vibing out listening to that new SZA. I was most definitely in my zone. Actually, let me know how y'all feel about that album in the comments, because it is a 10 out of 10. All hits, no misses. I'll say that much. And here I'm just blending out the front of my brow so that it doesn't look so blocky, and it can kind of just fade into the hair strokes, you know? Next, I'm just going in with my Brow or Never brow gel. I got this from Victoria's Secret. It was very inexpensive. I would say it was between $5 and $10. I don't really remember the exact price, but it was cheap. It does definitely do the job though. It doesn't leave any like white or crusty residue on my brows, and it keeps it still and flat throughout the whole day. I'll say that. Now for the good part, I'm going in with the Nubian palette by Juvia's Place. I started out using a brown shade, but that was just too light for me. So I used a darker brown shade from the same palette, and I kind of just alternated between the two shades just to get that perfect base color that I was looking for. And the brush I used for this was the Real Techniques Deluxe Crease Brush. It is very soft. It definitely got the job done. It was my first time using an actual crease brush because, as you know, I'm new to this. I don't have all the proper products or tools, so this came in very handy. Next, I went in with my Wet n Wild medium flat brush, and I just used that to pack on the gold shade from the Nubian palette. This palette overall is very pigmented as compared to my Makeup Revolution palette that I used in the previous video, so I was very happy with the results overall. And I just went in with my crease brush to just shade it out a little bit so that the cut of it wasn't too harsh. And I'm going back in with that concealer brush just to shape the eyeshadow a little bit more and give it a more cat eye look because I think that's really cute. And I'm going back in with that shading brush just to blend it out. Next, I went in with my NYX Epic Ink Liner. As we all know, I am not the best at eyeliner. I'm still very much practicing. My hands were a little shaky and I did mess up a couple times, but I did fix it and I feel like overall it looked good. Y'all, I was struggling, okay? And I just used that same concealer brush to clean up my eyeliner, and it ended up coming out a lot better than I expected it to. After that, I went with my Pond's Face Moisturizer. I usually do this before I even get into the brows so that it can sit on my skin and absorb before I put on my foundation. But I did forget this time, so I ended up doing it a little bit late, but it still sat for a good minute. After that, I went in with my Minimal Fusions mascara just to prep my lashes for the falsies and to get rid of that eyeshadow residue that always falls on top of them. I did go in with my Wet n Wild Impossible Primer. I'm not the biggest fan of the texture, but on the skin, it's great and it looks amazing and it feels amazing. The foundation that I used was the Lancome Ultra Wear foundation in the shade 550. And the brush I used was the Real Techniques 200 Expert Face Brush. This brush is so soft and it did an amazing job at blending my foundation. The foundation did come on a little light, but it oxidizes really well and eventually it blends in and starts to look like skin. And I don't like to use too much foundation because I'm all about that natural look, but sometimes I feel like I just don't use enough foundation. So next time I think I'm just gonna increase the amount that I use just to see how it turns out. Next, I'm going in with my NK Makeup Concealer in the shade Sienna, and I'm mixing that with my ColourPop concealer. I don't like to use the NK Makeup Concealer on its own, even though it's not too bright and it could blend out good enough for my shade, but it just has a really bright orange undertone, and I feel like it mixed with the ColourPop just kind of dims it down a little bit and makes it look a bit more skin-like. I apply that with a Wet n Wild Fleck brush. Now I'm going in with a Wet n Wild Fluffy brush just to blend it out a little bit. I ended up not really liking how the Wet n Wild brush was blending, so I did go back in with the Real Technique shading brush. It was a bit small, but it eventually got the job done. And I'm just using the foundation brush just to blend out any noticeable lines between the concealer and my foundation. Next, I'm going in with my Milani Translucent Medium to Deep Setting Powder. I put that over my chin and my forehead and my nose and my lip area. Don't mind how it looks, guys. There was a little incident between the powder and the hot comb, and I think we all see who won. Me personally, I like a really light under eye, so after I go in with the first concealer, I like to top it off with the e.l.f. Camo Concealer. I keep forgetting what shade this is, but it's very light and it just gives it that pop that I'm looking for. And to blend that out, I'm going in with another Wet n Wild fluffy brush. I started out using a different brush, but it had some residue on it from a previous look that I thought I washed out, but it wasn't washed out enough, allegedly. So then I just went in and I blended that out. And then I went back in with my foundation brush to take away any noticeable lines. To set my under eye, I go in with my Airspun translucent setting powder. Me personally, I don't like to bake because I feel like it always comes out looking a little too ashy for my liking. So I just pat that on to my under eye. And I'm using the clean side of that blender that I use for the Milani setting powder so that there isn't too much residue or any residue at all to affect my under eye. After that, I'm using my ColourPop concealer to contour my cheekbones and my nose. I like to use a little bit because a little does go a long way when it comes to this concealer. Just gonna use another Wet n Wild fluffy brush to blend that out. For my nose, I'm using a very fine Wet n Wild flat brush just to get more precision so that I can have that snatched look that I'm looking for. And my nose took a lot of blending, y'all, but it was so worth it because look at that, it's just snatched. Next, I'm going in with my Duo Clear Lash Glue. It comes on white, but it dries clear, which I love. And I'm using the last drops of this thing. I love this glue so much. I'm gonna use it until it's all done. I like to apply it onto my eyeline itself and then apply the lash because I feel like it just gives it a more easier application and it's a little less messy. Well, it's less messy if you have a steady hand, and we all know my hands be shaking, but I got it right. The lashes that I use are called Poop Lunch False Eyelashes. I got these from Amazon. They come with, I think it's 8 or like 9 in the pack, which is a great deal for the price that they are. They're very fluffy and they look very mink-like, so I would highly recommend. I can leave the link for them in the description box if you guys want to check it out. A dance break while I wait for it to dry, I guess. And y'all see how easy those lashes went on? I barely even had to use my tweezers. Like, that is by far my favorite lash technique. For my bottom eyeliner, I went in with my Beauty Treats eyeliner pencil in the shade Black. And I got this from the hair store, so I'm pretty sure it was very inexpensive, maybe like $1 or $2. But the pigment is amazing and it draws on very smooth. After that, I went in with my Mural Fusions mascara and I applied that to my top and my bottom lashes. I honestly don't like to use that mascara for my bottom lashes because it typically comes out a little too clumpy and overly packed on. So I went in with the Real Techniques lash separator just to get rid of some of those clumps. Next, I'm going in with the Juvia's Place Blush Rose palette, and I'll be using my Real Techniques 308 shadow brush to apply the blush to my cheeks. After that, I used the defining crease brush from Real Techniques to apply the highlighter. This palette is also very pigmented and the blush and highlighter were so smooth and it didn't go on too dry on my skin. And I just went back in with that contour blending brush just to get rid of some of the lines in between the blush and the contour. For my lips, I went with the NYX lip liner in the shade Espresso, and I just lined my lips throughout with that. And I use a very fine tip brush from the Solve brush collection, which I got off of Amazon, just to blend out that lip liner. I then went in with the NYX Butter Gloss in the shade Fudge Me, and I applied that to the middle of my lips. And then I went back in with that Solve brush to blend it and give it a smoother look. To top that off, I went in with the NYX Butter Gloss in the shade Madeline, and I applied that to the very middle of my lips, just to make it a little bit brighter and make it pop more. Then I went back in with the Solve brush and I cleaned up the sides of my lips. Well, I used a different Solve brush that has some concealer on it. Then I cleaned up the sides of my lips just to outline it and make it look cleaner. And I blended all of that out with a fluffier Solve brush. I then went in with the highlighter brush and I applied some highlighter to my Cupid's bow just to make it pop a little bit more. I then went in with my Milani Make It Last setting spray. I sprayed that all over and I used a beauty blender to just pat it in. I actually forgot to put on my bronzer, so I went back in with my Sephora palette and I used the bronzer in there. I put that along my forehead, my hairline, my neckline, my jawline. And then I went back in with the setting spray just to top it all off, and I used the beauty blender to pat it in once again. For the finishing touch, I use a damp Q-tip to clean off my nose ring as well as my earrings because I got makeup all over both of them. So this is the finished look. Thank you guys so much for watching another video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned. Make sure you turn your post notifications on because I have a really exciting video planned for next time. Make sure you check out my Instagram. I do post photos of the finished makeup looks there, and you guys can see how it looks overall. Thanks again for watching.